YouTube, how is everybody doing? Welcome to the first cast of the second round of playoffs. Today, we're gonna have a set of unbelievable matches coming up through the whole day. Welcome everybody again to the first cast. This is the 3 a.m. UTC time slot, which for the record is 6 a.m. my time. No sleeping last night. That's right, because we are casting, and we're casting a very, very interesting matchup. A lifeline matchup for the folks of goGT as they face off against C9N in Group E. Now, here's the deal. There is a very interesting situation happening today in the sense that a lot of these matches are going to be do or die matches for one of the teams participating in them. Primarily because, well, as part of the way the format of this league, this tournament, this league, whatever you want to call it, is set up, it works in a way that two losses and you're really out. And in this case, as you can see right there, goGT are really near that second loss. Can they survive for another round and try to fight for Group E to make it out into the playoffs of Group E? We're going to find that out in a moment. They're going up against C9N. And boy, oh boy, I don't envy either side. Those two teams are pretty significant. You guys, on the other hand, don't seem to think both teams are as strong. When we went and took a real quick look at the betting part of this match, my goodness gracious. The community really did not have the faith in goGT. C9N are no joke, by the way. We're going to talk about them in a moment. But the bets, my goodness gracious, there is a very good potential for an upset, maybe in terms of the odds. But it doesn't look like the community really thinks that that's going to happen. And so most of the coins were banked on the folks of C9N. What can we say? All that can be said is let's take a look at the teams really quickly, see how they did through Osiris League this season, especially during the playoffs. We have a few of the scores right here. Talk a little bit about how we got to the point we got to, and then get into the match. As you can see down here, as always, you'll see who are the casters of the match of this time slot, I guess. And you can find in here none other than myself, but Dragothian, who is on the line with us already. I don't think you guys can hear him yet, but he is on standby waiting for this match to start as we are nearing the, 6-7 minute countdown before the match actually starts. So goGT, these guys had a very interesting set of matches in their playoffs. They almost didn't make it. They almost didn't make it out of the knockout stage of the group stage. That win was relatively okay in the sense that you see about 7,000 point difference between them and the team that they beat. But 7,000 points to qualify into a playoffs match is a little bit too close for comfort. And then, unfortunately for them, they drew the behemoth that are 1090 as their first match, and it did not work out really well in their favor. Now, I'm not taking the first matchup of the playoffs as a very decisive factor. Why? Because at this time, some of these alliances were still in their lost kingdom. And while I'm not saying they were necessarily fighting or anything of that sort, the fact that they were focused on healing post-Lost Kingdom or being in the process of rebuilding post-Lost Kingdom, it makes sense that, the matchups, the initial matchups that happen in here won't really represent what an alliance can do. And on top of that, because of the mishap we had on round 1, we had to, as you guys know, push this whole round to a full week. And when that was done, this gave another full week for these alliances to study each other, to change their tactics, to think about how they're playing the game, to build up more troops, and, to do their thing to get to a point where this matchup is potentially, interestingly, competitive much more than this match here. Now, these guys are not coming in with a little bit of power. These guys are coming in with 2 billion power. I don't know if we're going to see a lot of heals out of them. I don't know what we're going to see out of them, but I will tell you this. Out of all the matchups happening right now, this do or die right here is the moment where goGT have the opportunity to try to take out C9N to make C9N's life a little bit harder and keep themselves in the tournament. Throughout the day, we're going to show a few of these matches that are do or die moments, and of course, congratulate the losing team for having a fantastic run through Osiris League. But of course, we could see upsets, and we could see how groups we thought are very straightforward might turn on their head. And speaking of turning on their head, let's turn to the other side and look at C9N. Now, C9N, interestingly enough, never really had a very dominantly crazy win in the playoffs, meaning once the group stage came out and this was the knockout stages in the first round last week, these guys are playing a game that is a winning game, but they're not going crazy points wise. They're not going too much into the their aggressive side. I believe that to a certain extent, some of these alliances are either saving strategies or just not putting in the full power because they don't want to reveal their hand too quickly. And so you can see that in their case, we all know how strong these folks are, but their scores in the past 3 matches don't truly reflect necessarily their full strength in how their journey through the Osiris League was. They had a pretty easy what would you call it? A group stage in the beginning, very early on. You can see a little bit right there of their last matchup of that group stage. Pretty clean sweep right there. But once the playoffs started hitting, they started facing an opposition that was able to potentially counter them, that was able to take into account things in their gameplay that they didn't even take into account. And so when all that is being said, C9N have shown that they're able to win pretty comfortably, but they are not winning in a statement manner, which means there is still room in there potentially for goGT to figure out how to read C9N fast enough, figure out how to counter them, and then try to figure out how they can hold on to what they have. This right here tells me one very important thing about C9N. It means to me that either their strategy was a little clear, was readable, and they got countered and they had to improvise, or the other way around, that the other team's strategy was very visible to C9N and they were able to improvise and make changes to ensure that they stay at the top, but not necessarily that they dominate. So these kinds of scores can reveal to us a much more depthful game, in the sense that if it's not a blowout, both teams were doing something right, but one team figured out what the other team was doing right first and managed to counter it. Which is why I'm really excited to see C9N, because quite frankly, goGT are the guys who have everything on the line right now, and it'll be up to them to be the ones pushing in and making the statement and making sure that everybody is aware of who they are, what they are, and they can continue with their journey on the Osiris League. But it's proven by the scores and the results of C9N that they're capable of reading their opponent and that their strategy is sound enough that they're able to pull off wins, letting the enemy get a little bit of points, letting the enemy get a little bit of the fight going on, but still taking at the end the win. We are about a minute away from the match. Some final thoughts for you guys to keep an eye on. First and foremost, we are expecting to see in the first minute or so of the match, rallies over all obelisks. We've seen the obelisk rallies early on happen quite a bit this Arc of Osiris League, and I'm assuming it'll happen quite more often through the whole through the whole playoff. On top of all that, what you should keep an eye on is on the rally counter. I'm actually saying on the rally counter. Keep an eye on the timings in which individuals start launching rallies. It is crucial to keep an eye on the order in which rallies come out. And if you guys manage to catch the pattern that these alliances are using to rally objectives, you'll be able to better foresee what's coming, and you'll be able to enjoy a little more the potential reaction by the team that's getting attacked who can try to figure out these patterns. We're going to try to point out all these things for you guys as the cast is going on. But as of right now, the timer is telling me that we should be live. And so, you know, last time we did this at the first time slot, it didn't work out very well. So this time we're going to make sure we can actually get into the match before we go into the commentating. And looks like we're all good. Let's make sure Dragothian is here with us and you guys can hear him. And yeah, let's go into the match itself and see how this goes. Good luck to C9N and goGT. Let's get into the battlefield.
Hello and welcome everybody. We are just hopping into the match here. And wow, we've got a great Sunday to kick off for you guys, bright and early or nice and late on Saturday, depending on where you're at in the world. And that's the beauty of this game. Brings everybody together. That being said, this is going to be a matchup of two powerhouses. These two alliances are huge alliances from a power perspective, certainly fighters in their own right. And I got to tell you, I'm really excited to see these guys match up together, one-on-one, alliance versus alliance, and really start to show off what their alliances and their team members are capable of doing. Right now, we've got the blue team being C9N at the top left, and then we've got the red team being goGT at the bottom right. There's no real advantage for these players one way or another from a positioning standpoint. Like you can see on the map at the top right, obelisks are already starting to light up because that's the primary target right off the bat, like Gecko said earlier. We got you back in, Gecko?
Yes, sir. I'm here with you. Another one of these great matches to cast with you. And I'm going to tell you this. The community seems to really like us as a commentating duo. I think we should consider it for a career path, no?
Let's do it, man. I have no problems watching some fine work being had on the field, watching two massive alliances start clashing their T5s against each other. I am all in.
So, Dragothian, in 37 seconds, the match will begin, the gates of hell will open, and all hell will break loose. The question I have for you, my friend, is what is something you think we should keep an eye on the first, like, 2 or 3 minutes of the battle?
So there's a few different strategies that a lot of these top 32 alliances in the whole game, not even just a kingdom, but a whole game, are employing. I really look to see which one starts to deviate from the norm. So the norm obviously being obelisk rallies right off the gate, usually 4 from each side. Let's see if they even do that. And if there is a difference, let's take a peek and see what the difference is, because a lot of times, sometimes some new things can come out of these matches.
Yes, sir. So there it is. The gates of hell opened up. We're looking right now at the bottom red team, kind of, you know, looking at the lines starting to form, the marches starting to walk out of their cities. And, you know, this is the moment. This is the truth. Here we go. 5 rallies set up. Curiously enough, blue team going for for an enemy obelisk. And what else they have here? 2 enemy obelisks. They're not rallying their own obelisks. And the red team is rallying every possible obelisk. So they're trying to get to theirs as fast as possible for defense and to try to catch goGT off guard.
Yep, I'm just noticing that goGT has sent their 4 rallies, so they are going the norm, and I would like to see, as we open these rallies up, start marching towards their objectives to see if they break them right by the shrines or like right by the altars, like a lot of the teams are doing nowadays, or if they like to let them keep going and start to hit that obelisk, see if they can maybe get a quick ninja capture. But like you said, C9N is only sending 2, and that's really being a defensive strategy, wanting to make sure they lock down their side, keep all their troops on their side of the map, and start slow pushing forward. That's also a very solid strategy nowadays.
One thing to point out, we're looking at 27 against 27, which is okay to an extent if it's an even lack of members, 10% less on each side. But I'm not a big fan of this, primarily because at any moment, either team can get 3 more members and get a massive 15 marches lead. So as long as it stays at a 27 against 27, all's good in the world. But the moment we're going to start seeing one side having a bit more members than the other, which, believe it or not, is something we've seen quite a bit through the playoffs, this could become a problem.
Yeah, I'm noticing that too. I really I have a hard time believing this is something that's planned. I mean, well, obviously it's not planned, but you know what I mean? Like, you have 60 members in each one of these sides for the Osiris League, and I gotta believe there's not 32 people and 33 people on each side that respectively can't make a match like this where you're in the top 32 in the Osiris League playoffs. You're at the end of the road. This is for all the marbles. This is for all the glory. And yeah, I'm just curious to see why. And I do see some more members joining on the goGT, so that's good for them. Still sitting at 27 on the C9N side.
And right now, 10 marches behind, even though, with that being said, red team already has all their buildings. Their marches, their rallies are so far marching very nicely. I see 2 full cavalry marches on our screen crossing together. I'm guessing one is going towards their own obelisk and the other one going towards the other way. And on the other side, Dragothian, a freaking full infantry rally.
Man, that's a shout out to my own heart. I got to tell you.
And guess what?
I'm not going to lie to you.
And guess what? It looks like it broke up. It looks like they did exactly what you said. It seems like their infantry, what I thought wasn't full infantry. I only see cavalries, but I could have sworn I saw full infantry march slowly walking their way. Broke up. Bunch of people going everywhere. Forward positioning by red team, who are now 30, by the way, against 27. We all talked about quite a bit about C9N before the cast and throughout the time since we knew C9N are what we're casting. But at this point, they are 15 marches behind, and this is not looking very good for them right now.
That's definitely going to be a disadvantage for sure. I know that just having faced C9N in the past, they are solid fighters, so I do believe that this is still going to be a very good match, even if they don't get their 3. However, like you said, that's going to be a pretty significant blow just to start the thing off with not having those 15 marches. I do like, so that strategy that goGT just used, not necessarily using a rally to forward position troops on the opponent's side, but just mobilizing 1.5 million of their troops on their own side, organized in an organized fashion right there beside their Shrine of War and their Sky Altar. Absolutely a great move by them to make sure they've got what they need right there to defend.
And as you're saying that, we're watching a cavalry march break right next to the desert altar at the bottom by red team, doing exactly what you said, mobilizing 1.5 million of these cavalries really quickly up to the front. And now they have a much bigger presence on their desert altar that was being approached by C9N's Oscar, but he instantly turned around as soon as he saw that rally break. He knew exactly what was coming. And within 1 second, all buildings opened up. All constructions, good English overall, are all unlocked. Buildings are starting to get occupied. 1, 2, and 3 altars are already going in the favor of both teams. 2 for the red, 1 for blue, and now a second one for blue. And as the map slowly breaks up at its half point, as you know, it's a mirrored map. Which shrine is the one that's left for last, as always?
It's always the Shrine of Life. And I'm curious as to why, because usually to capture those first obelisks, you're going to send a T1 Cav march with, a double C and a Dragon Lancer or vice versa, just to get there very quickly to make sure you capture it as quickly as possible, because when the match opens, it's instantly unlocked. I always take that march and run it over to the Shrine of Life to capture it right away, so we don't lose any seconds on those points, those sweet, valuable points.
That bottom Shrine of Life, I'm telling you this right now, as an individual who's casted probably 100+ Ark of Osirises since Ark of Osiris has started, that Shrine of Life at the bottom is always the last building to be taken, and I have no idea why. Chat and community, I'd turn to you guys and ask you, why on earth is that Shrine of Life so unpopular? And while you guys are thinking about that, in the comments right now, we have 242 beautiful people watching the stream as we started up. Who do you think is going to win this matchup? Let us know with a hashtag goGT or hashtag C9N in the chat.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. That's actually the second most valuable building on the entire map. So I'm tied with the other shrines, right? But the shrines are the second biggest points per minute generator on the map behind the altars. So to have one of those not being generating points instantly is a huge blow. And I think as we start to look towards the middle, we're going to start seeing some significant action. goGT has significant troops posturing forward on the C9N side. And this is where you might start to see where that 3-player delta is going to start coming into play. This is where it's going to happen.
That delta is also showing up quite a bit in the rally count. We just took a look at red team goGT with 5 rallies ready to roll, and blue team with only 2, one of them being one marching, which is a good thing. But if blue team are looking to win this, they're really going to have to remember the fundamentals of Ark of Osiris, which is rally, 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 primarily, as well as, of course, some center presence for the Temple of Osiris, and good defense and holding all together, which all of these require troops and people, and blue team are still 3 members behind, even though they're very little, they have a very little, like, red team is a little bit ahead by about 20 points-ish. That's not very significant, but the points per minute game is now closing in. Altars and shrines and all that is locking up for each team, and now the battles are starting as we're taking a look at the desert altar belonging to C9N. A rally by goGT is hitting there hard, but the presence on the open field by blue team is massive.
It is, and they're starting to push forward in the middle here, and I don't necessarily know if goGT has the troop count in the middle to defend. I mean, it definitely looks like it's almost a 2-to-1 advantage now. As you can see there, if they're not in the middle, where else are they at? And like you just said, look at the altars. Look at the 2 altars on the C9N side. They're definitely getting covered with red troops everywhere. Now, this is one of the hardest objectives to take because it's right beside the obelisk on both sides for each opponent. So to take an altar from an opponent, especially early on when the troops are going to be around that area for the most part, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do.
So for those of you who are new to Ark of Osiris and haven't seen a cast just yet, first of all, welcome. And secondly, as we mentioned, this game is all about points per minute, and every building has its own denominations of points per minute they give, altars being the biggest building with the biggest points, 150 points per minute. So these teams are really gunning at getting the other team's points away from them, and that's why you see the first few fights being the altars. But as time went by, everything started lighting up. We're looking at Shrines of Life, both of them blinking with rallies, an obelisk blinking with a red rally. C9N really have to keep an eye on their obelisk, or else they might take a loss there. On top of that, their Shrine of War is being contested, and really, red team doing everything right, putting the pressure in very early on with as many rallies as they can. They're milking the small advantage they still have, as C9N now have 28 members, 1 joined, so 5 more marches on the open field. But man, goGT are pretty much doing everything right as of right now. They're taking advantage of the little bit of extra edge they have. They're sending rallies all over the place, and they're putting themselves in the open field so they can contest.
Yeah, you see 2 different types of strategies being deployed here. C9N is being very much a turtle strategy, making sure that they don't lose any of their ground. Because honestly, if you think about it, right, as long as each opponent, so each team, holds their own ground, if no arcs are captured, it'll be a tie, right? So if you can hold your own ground the whole match and have the arc advantage, you win. It's a guarantee. It's just points. There's numbers involved. So with C9N, they're holding their own, and where you see goGT employing their strategy is they're definitely the aggressor. You saw 5-6 rallies simultaneously heading out. That takes coordination, that takes timing, and they all tended to hit roughly around the same time, which means that that's going to spread C9N very thin on that front, which is also why you don't see any red flashing buildings just yet. I'm sure you'll see a few. I saw one towards the bottom, but I think that was more of a single army or 2. Not a whole lot of rallies popping out from C9N side. I think there's 2 right now, but again, just it's more of a turtle strategy on the C9N blue side versus the goGT side in the red, really employing more of an aggressive all the time, having rallies up, go, go, go. They are definitely living up to their name of goGT.
One of the things that are really interesting is that you said 2 things that made that fulfilled each other. Meaning, when you first talked about the points per minute, right? You said just now that as long as you stay tied, everything is good. And now you have to have either your arc positioning, or of course you got some provisions that come into game as well. But of course, if you have the arc and you just hold on to half of the map, you're good to go. But the thing is, you also mentioned early on that in your case, you go for the Shrine of Life as quickly as possible, so you milk every second of points you can get. And that seems to be a critical case in this match, because they're going back and forth on who has the lead by a very, 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 very small margin. I'm assuming those are provisions coming in slowly and steadily, swapping the advantage between the two teams. But C9N were the ones who held onto their buildings first. So the first little bit of a lead existed on the blue side. And so if they are looking to just hold on, unless they take all the arcs and have the clear, as you said, the clear advantage taking care of the arcs, we're going to see the same buildings being held by everybody all match long, and just hope and pray that the arcs go to one team only. This could actually be crazy. Two first arcs go into blue, two last arcs go into red, and red wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, since this match has started, you have not seen, and of course there's blinking buildings starting to really start to pop up at the top here, but just looking at what's around these buildings, there's not really a chance for, I think, either to fall. So, well, the one at the desert altar on the C9N side does have some solid reinforcement, and there's a good rally hitting looks like a weakened garrison. So this might actually be the first building to fall for either side, because again, it's just been even throughout. I really think one or two of these might end up really winning the match, alongside of being in the middle, making sure that you're really focusing on the arc, which is now on the move for C9N.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to S1 Fidelity, who's a new member in the game. He's new to the game. Welcome to Rise of Kingdoms. We're doing these casts exactly for individuals like yourself and many others who haven't really experienced Ark of Osiris just yet, who don't really know who the top tier teams are, who don't necessarily know how this mode works just yet. And so first of all, welcome to Rise of Kingdoms. And secondly, I mean, do we hold on to an Ark and not submit it? So hear me out on this one. Blue team has right now the Arc, and they have a clear advantage in the center because clearly they have the Arc with no one contesting with them. If they take this first Arc, that's 3,000 points. With 3,000 points, now the second Arc coming in with 3,500 points, is it worth it for them to try to just hog this Arc, the second Arc, or even this one, as long as possible, try to delay the Arc timer, and just keep steamrolling slowly and steadily, just doing their turtling better said.
It's definitely an option. And I mean, really, if you think about it, there's really nowhere they can't take this thing on the map. I mean, they can take it all the way to the back left of their base and not cap it at all. So really make it a battle of structures. That's, again, part of the reason why this game mode inside of Rise of Kingdoms is so fun, because there's no limit to the strategy that you can employ on the field. And, you know, that's what tends to, especially at the higher tier that you're seeing right now, that's what really tends to win these matches, is that little extra wild card factor of something that you bring. Yeah. It's going to be something that you should watch throughout the match. And as you can see, we got tons of buildings lighting up on the map right now.
Yes, sir. Everything blinking. 2 Shrines of Life as always blinking. Desert Altar by blue team looking like it's holding strong. One thing that we should point out to the community as well is that the Arc carrier is affected by the Arc in it with 2 different debuffs. First of all, the March is cut down, and Dragothian, correct me here if I'm mistaken. I believe March speed is cut down by 50% and damage, or 90% is it? And damage is 200% on the Arc carrier.
Yeah, so definitely the 200% damage, and yes, I believe it's a 50% march speed reduction to boot. So it's basically you better have some protection, or you're going to go down pretty quickly with 1 march hitting you for about 3 seconds. Is basically what those numbers mean.
Correct, but one mechanic that we haven't seen yet in use as part of a strategy is the fact that a march carrying the Arc can go join provisions, and once they go into a provision style, they instantly drop the Ark of Osiris. So You can say, you know, holding onto the arc for a long, long time might require you to sacrifice one set of troops. But you could, just like you said, take the Ark of Osiris all the way to the back left, and then join a provisions tile back there, drop the arc, and let it be. Because as long as you're holding on to your buildings and it's all the way on the back of the map, someone is going to have to go all the way back there. Someone's going to have to march the whole way back to their side. And instead of you wasting a march sitting back there with the arc, which will later on get beaten down to grab the arc, you can just leave it in the back. And when it starts moving a bit closer to your buildings, go attack the one march holding the arc, which we said is affected by slowness and extra damage. And you can keep doing this over and over. So I'm really looking forward to see who will employ an Ark of Osiris and provisions type of strategy. We've seen people who picked up an arc, by the way, wrongly, and then they went into a provisions to drop it to let their arc carrier pick it up. Sorry for cutting you off there.
Right. So, you know, if it goes all the way to the back, and again, we're kind of getting, you know, a little off tangent here, but it is a valid strategy to talk about, right? If it goes all the way to the back, I would never send anybody go back there and get it, because like you said, 50% march speed reduction and pretty much an instant kill with having the extra damage that you take. It's not worth it. At that point, rally city. It's time to start sending rallies nonstop, starting to take some of these objectives. And it looks like on the map, that's kind of what's starting to happen now. You know, even though that strategy wasn't deployed, but you've got now a Shrine of Life from both teams being lost to their opponents. And there's also an outpost that just got lost on the goGT side to C9N, at least for a little bit. It looks like they may start to take it back here soon. But some blows are starting to get exchanged. Now that there's an arc out of the way, and people are really starting to spread out, not knowing fully where all their armies are at, because 5 armies to manage per person is kind of hard to deal with, right? Especially if you are hearing you know, all your opponents and all of your teammates here shouting, "I need you here! I need you here! Well, I need you here!" you never know which way to go. So, you know, and then again, with the map being so large, being a 2 alliance map, you just sometimes you get a little bit discombobulated. You just don't know where you're at. So now you're going to start seeing some of this stuff. Whereas before, because it was so structured of a move out, and they have a game plan at the beginning, there wasn't much movement. Now there is.
So there's an interesting situation right here to point out very quickly. It's it's insignificant to an extent, but for this specific matchup, it's very, very significant. You mentioned both the Shrines of Life going to opposite teams. Blue team just lost the Shrine of Life they took away from red. However, you mentioned this as well. Blue team snatched a outpost away from the red team. And what that created, it created a 30 point per minute lead in their favor for 3 minutes. Why? Because they held on to all their outposts while the red team lost one of their own. And it'll take them about 3 minutes to fully occupy the outpost. As you can see, by the timer, they should have it back any moment. And honestly, this 30 point per minute is exactly what you were describing. Now, again, because of the whole Shrine of Life situation, red team is back now have the lead essentially in the points per minute game, and they can get a much more substantial lead as time goes by. But again, these little nuances, these small 30 point per minute buildings are everything C9N need to do exactly what you said. Turtle away until the arcs come, grab 2 arcs, and then just hold strong.
Yeah, and right now, goGT owns both Shrines of Life, at least for this second, about to drop. Now would have been the time, the last maybe minute or so, to heal up any troops that they had severely wounded, because they would have gotten double the buff. Obviously, it just went back to C9N, and good job to them for taking that back. But there was a good minute there where they had both of the Shrines of Lives, which meant that they got both of the buffs, which is 25% healing speed each. So if they were going to heal those troops up and bring those troops back to the battlefield, if they didn't have enough after not healing, that would have been a great and the best time. This is the only resource that you really need to utilize in this type of match, is healing speed buffs, because that's what is going to allow you to bring your troops back to the field. Of course, you're going to use buffs too. You definitely need to use the best and brightest of that, but this is really the only resource type thing that you use in this match. So having those 2 shrines and making sure that you identify when you have them and then healing at that time is your best bet.
Yeah, so one thing that now we got to figure out, about 25 minutes into the matchup, we have identified the strategy by C9N, which is hold on for dear life and just get a little bit of advantages here and there to just take that win. What does goGT have to do right now in order to potentially, get back into this match and make blue team start sweating a little bit? What do you think, Dragothian?
Well, if it's me, I think it's actually pretty close to what they're starting to try and do. So as soon as you started asking me what I would do, I went and looked at the middle. Right now, everything's back to square, and we're looking at about a 3,700 delta roughly. But red team has a points per minute advantage. This means that to me, we need to make sure we focus on the arc, grab the arc, and have a clean getaway. Get that cleaned up middle area so that we can grab that arc and pull it back. It takes about 2.5 minutes or so to walk the arc back to that outpost right up front. So I'll make sure that we clear the middle, make sure we have a clear path from behind so we don't get hit from the sides, and then make sure that that arc gets back quickly. We'll be right back in it, even. And then that last arc is probably going to be for all the marbles, assuming that each side can continue to hold their own structures. I'd also start sending some rallies to both obelisks, maybe start sending some rallies over to the outposts as well, possibly, just to kind of throw them off their game and get them on their back foot so that whenever we go to the middle and whenever we're really starting to make that final push for that last arc, that we're going to be in a little bit more of an advantage in the open field.
So with 33 minutes remaining, I think that one of the first things goGT have to do is they have to focus themselves onto one altar. Yes, it's a little bit easier said than done because both altars that belong to both teams are, as you mentioned earlier on, closer to the obelisks, right? And so it's much easier for a team to defend those. But if goGT can grab one of these altars and hold on to it for dear life, now C9N's strategy is a little bit of a question mark. Not because one Sky Altar or Desert Altar can be a difference maker when it comes to Ark of Osiris or not. As long as they keep taking the Ark of Osiris, it is more than likely that the strategy will still work. But when you're seeing the points per minute game in favor of the opposition, even though you are getting the arcs, and even though you know that you're getting these chunks of points every 15 minutes or so, it starts rattling you a little bit. And so we're seeing the Desert Altar, or how many ha-ha-has there are in there, is rallying it and solo hitting it with 3 other marches. And that Desert Altar actually seems to be relatively close to fall down. Blue team really need to figure out what to do with this, because if the red team starts winning the points per minute game, like they could if they take this Desert Altar, it's going to start being a little bit of a mind game. And red team are doing exactly that, going for every possible building.
So I feel like, when you ask me these things, it's almost like I do have like a 5-minute ball, crystal ball into the future. Because what did I say? Get in the middle, swarm that area and lock down. They've got that. Rallies are going off all over the place. They've got that. And they might actually take a few of these too on top of that. So, not to say, I know what's going to happen, but it sounds like I kind of know what's going to happen. This is good stuff, though. This is exactly what we look to see from the top tier players of this game. They know the strategies. They know what counters things. Look, they just took the Shrine of Life back, or I'm sorry, the Desert Altar away from C9N. You see all those sad faces. That's big points. That, alongside of winning this arc, could certainly turn not only the actual match into a tie, but maybe even put it in their favor for goGT.
You see, Dragothian, this is why I like casting with you so much, because it feels like you and I we're looking at the same crystal ball, right? You literally just said, take care of the center, get that arc out of the way, and I literally just said, grab an altar, hold on to it for dear life, and bada bing, bada boom, just like Chiskel says.
Yep.
Look at what happened. We foresaw it happen, and it's not that we are these, all-knowing oracles of Ark of Osiris. It's the correct play to make at the top tier. And the fact that these alliances recognize that by themselves and made the play happen goes to show that the level we're expecting out of these individuals and out of these alliances is not only top tier, it's the best of the best. It's beyond, it's the top of the top. And They're delivering. They are definitely delivering, although C9N are posturing towards the center. So maybe this arc carry will be very, very rough for goGT. But again, as long as they can delay the arc carry by blue team, by C9N, they're winning right now the points per minute game. And they're starting to close the gap very, very quickly.
Yeah, they've got 3 altars, Gecko, and also if they drop this arc, it actually works in their favor. And I say that for this reason. So we've got literally, if we're able to, when I say we, if goGT are able to pull this arc back to the closest building possible, which I was about to say, why is he going left? He needs to be going to the right. If he can get it as soon as possible, there's actually going to be time for 2 more arcs. If he gets slowed down a little bit right now, maybe drops it once or twice, which you don't want to do that, on purpose. But if it does, it actually won't be the worst thing, because if goGT can hold on to these altars, which they have 3 of the 4 right now, which are the biggest points per minute buildings in the match, and they capture this arc, they're going to be ahead, or they're going to be ahead. On top of that, if there's only 1 arc left, all they've got to do, they don't even have to take any more buildings. They just need to hold what they've got and make sure they grab that last arc, and at least don't let C9N capture it. If they do, that's where they could see some trouble. But they need to make sure that arc does not get captured, period.
So even though we're talking about the arc, I'm kind of keeping an eye on the desert altar right now, the one that is occupied by goGT that's supposed to be blue. 10 seconds until it's fully occupied. Why is that? It almost went down to a rally. This, as far as I'm concerned, is the most important building for goGT. If they can hold on to it and hold on to it for as long as possible, now it's actually taking points for them. And they are 300 points per minute ahead. That first arc that blue team carried will be gone within 10 minutes. 10 minutes is all the lead that they got out of that arc. Now, I'm a little less optimistic than you are, my friend, when it comes to what to do with this arc. You're talking about a potential of 1 more, a potential of dropping it. I think that the only thing red team need to do right now is not let that arc go anywhere. If they want to really rattle C9N right now, this Arc of Osiris has to keep going towards the red side, but stay on the open field the whole time. C9N's whole strategy revolves around the Arc. And if they lose control of the Arc, which they right now took control back of, what do they do now? Their whole strategy is based on that. And with every minute that this Arc is not delivered, C9N are losing 300 points worth of a lead. And so I don't even care about arc number 2, 3, 4, 5, or 20. For all I care, in my opinion, keep that arc on the field as long as possible. Don't even deliver it. And this is how you rattle C9N.
Yeah, and if we go back to that desert altar that's still getting hit, that's supposed to be for C9N, that has been a absolutely stellar defense by goGT, with having that Richard, I'm assuming Charles inside of that too. It's completely dropped 2 rallies now, and then of course it's also getting swarmed, and goGT is doing the exact right thing. Just keep filtering in troops. At this point, it doesn't even matter what you're throwing in there. Of course, ideally it's infantry, but they're so slow coming back from the base or from the obelisk. It's going to take minutes and minutes and minutes to get there, which will not be okay. I do agree with you to a certain extent that holding on to that arc and not capturing it necessarily is a good strategy at times. But look right now, look who has the arc. It's C9N, because they didn't capture it. They couldn't capture it. And now, instead of having a 1,000 point lead, now they're potentially staring a 5,000 point deficit in the face.
I agree. Of course, that delivering that arc would have been better for red team to keep gaining those points. I really do like the fact that, by the way, just now, right now my point is about to be not valid anymore because just came in and started swarming. But I liked the fact, yeah, I like the fact that the desert altar had like 3 or 4 red marches that were not hitting the swarm at all. They were moving left and right next to the desert altar, waiting to pull their other troops that are inside the desert altar out and stick more troops in and just hold on. At this point, getting the kills and stopping the offensive by C9N shouldn't necessarily be their priority. The priority should be building should be full at all time. Let them keep swarming, let them keep hitting, let them keep having all these marches around this desert altar, because those marches are now nowhere else. and just continually reinforce that building. Hitting the swarm at this point for goGT, in my opinion, is actually not the best play. Because what they're doing right now, and you're going to see it in a moment on the screen, one of these blue marches is going to sad face all the way back to their city. A second one coming in now. And that's a march that's going to march much faster back home. And it can be utilized in a rally to take over something else, or even to fight for this Ark of Osiris.
Yeah, these folks that are swarming this Desert Altar from C9N are just not getting anything accomplished. And just again, being blessed to be the observer and not necessarily being the observer and the player, which happens to us all. I have a nice bird's eye view of kind of what's going on with the Ark and buildings, and that's why we get to cast these fun games and talk to all you fine people. If it was me, and again, just having the insight of being able to look at it without necessarily having to coordinate, I would be sending a rally from both obelisks, from the cities that are at both obelisks, to the outpost on C9N side to go intercept, because of how fast they're going to be, intercept this Ark coming back, because it's going to be slow enough to where a 1-minute rally will get there in time. And then at that point, try and turn that Ark back around. The longer you can prevent them from capturing this Ark, the better off you're going to be, just simply because, again, like you said, there's a 270 point per minute difference in favor of goGT. The longer you can keep that delta as low as possible, the better off the red team's going to be.
So Fenster is not messing around. Fenster has one march with the Ark and 4 of them escorting the Ark, making sure that nobody's getting close to that. The leader...
He's escorting himself.
He's escorting himself, I know, right? Send 0U is also there, the leader of C9N. Shout out to my friend Send 0U. He's one of the good guys, one of the individuals who were part of trying to figure out how we ensure the whole situation that happened last week is being handled as well as possible. And so now Fenster finally realizes, okay, I can take a little bit of a break. There was a change between last Osiris League and this one in the aesthetics and the way we see the game. Dragothian, have you noticed it?
Yeah, so I see the auto simplify for one. What else do you see?
That's what I was talking about, the auto simplify.
Yeah.
Auto simplify is...
And there's no way to turn it off.
There's no way to turn it off. I am, quite frankly, a big fan of this. When I record videos that have substantial amount of marches on the open field, I love doing the simplified graphics because it allows you to see what's happening on the field. As much as I love seeing the big boy, like big marches, you know, at the end of the day, what you want to see is every action around, and all these extra marches doing the animation is not only causing a lot of lag, but really doesn't have a true added value beyond aesthetics. And so I'm a big fan of this. I can see this whole swarm around the Desert Altar and see exactly who's doing what damage with these simplified graphics. I like it. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, it's definitely smooth right now. I'm operating on a machine that could probably handle the full marches, but again, it would be a little bit more laggy, and not everybody has that capability. A lot of folks use, phones to play the mobile game. Not everybody has access to tablets, and a lot of folks use emulators as well. So it's just, there's so many different avenues to play this game. One, that's awesome, but two, it's hard to code everything properly to make sure it all fits together nicely and tightly in a nice, neat fashion. That being said, that Ark is really about to get captured, which is going to happen here any minute. It looks like by Fenster. No, he's just sitting there. He said, "Why not? Let's just camp out."
That's the way to go, my man. And the Desert Altar fell too, right there, top Desert Altar.
Did.
Boy, oh boy.
It did. Look at how many C9N marches are around there too. They figured out that, hey, we probably should get this back. This is how they're catching up. So good job to C9N for realizing that. And again, I think one of the best strategies that they can be doing alongside of owning the Ark right now, just start sending rallies like crazy. Start sending rallies, capturing buildings, or at least keeping goGT on the back foot so they can maintain the slim margin that they've got at the moment, which is slowly evaporating, but they own a 3,000 point wild card in their hand right now, right beside their structure.
So one more shout out to a comment in the chat right here. We have Misfit Lion King, the leader of 1093, saying the folks of C9N needs to get some multiple rallies as soon as possible to get things started. And it's kind of like he predicted the future, right? A couple of rallies already hitting out there, and that he said that a little bit before the Desert Altar was taken back. We're gonna see, by the way, 1093 later today in a cast that is gonna be a very, very interesting situation, as our friend Big Rick, guest caster in the Osiris League, is going to be facing 1093 for potential elimination. That's coming up later today, and you guys definitely don't want to be missing that. So make sure, in case you aren't yet, to subscribe to the Rise of Kingdoms official channel and click that bell so you get a notification when the next stream comes up. Boy, oh boy, we got some good matches coming up today.
Yeah, shout out to Misfits Lion King. He's one of the leaders of one of the other alliances that's in this very group. So definitely interested to see that he's watching this match. Definitely looking to see what his opponents in the future are going to be utilizing so he can develop a strategy too. So very smart man. And yeah, I mean, look, again, we've got more blinking buildings. We've got more, I mean, just everything's happening. It's starting to get to crunch time. We're at 19 minutes. And again, just it's kind of interesting, like you said, Gecko, earlier, holding on to that arc, not necessarily hiding it, but they're hiding it in plain sight. Okay, go ahead and do some rallies, take some rallies. But guess what? I've got $3,000 just sitting here waiting to go ahead and put right back in the bank.
Yeah, those 3,500 points on the second arc are really going to be crucial. It's just, that little extra edge. With that being said, we're still seeing blue team very, very aggressive on the field right there. We're seeing rallies all over the place, and even a rally on that Desert Altar, which was not Desert Altar, sorry, it was on the Shrine of Life, and it was counter-rallied by C9N. We were showing that earlier today, like a couple minutes ago. Here's the thing, though. We're looking at the map. Both teams have an outpost of the other team. What a bunch of trolls. Blue team now have a lead, 80 points per minute, and they hold on to the arc, which they just delivered. 7 minutes and 50 seconds until the next arc means they're not out of the woods just yet. I don't know whether holding on to that arc was really worth it if they were going to drop it when they did. They actually left an opening for goGT to get another arc. There are 17 minutes remaining, so there will be 10 minutes to carry an arc. I don't know if that decision is something C9N will regret or not.
Well, I don't know if they had a choice. So they had, if you see, you were just talking about it, the top of the map there, you've got a red outpost for goGT. I think there was a march or two, and it looks like there's another one marching right there with bay bars. He probably was kind of forced to grab it, because otherwise he would have gotten, like you said earlier, with the debuffs that the arc carrier has, he would have been dropped pretty quickly, even with a half health. Bay bars running around causing some havoc in the back end of C9N's territory. Looks like there's another one there to the left that just got grabbed. There's another double C running around Chow Chow, just causing some havoc too. I mean, these guys are pulling out all the stops. I'm not gonna lie. And look, they're starting to re-grab their territory again. The Shrine of Life at the bottom here has got some significant activity going. Lots of AoEs, lots of open field battles. There's a Richard in that Shrine of Life for C9N as well. So that's going to be a toughie to take down, especially with cav marches to boot. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be interesting. I think this really is going to come down to the last arc, because these point per minutes are going to start to even out again, and then really it's going to be down to that last set of points that arc provides.
One thing to point out is that the next arc will be worth 4,000 points, and blue team is currently in the lead by about 3,900 points, and they still lead the point per minute game, by the way, so that delta keeps growing as time goes by. For red team right now, the biggest win will be potentially to grab that bottom, and they literally just do that with the Sky Altar being taken away, and now the Shrine of Life still being contested. I'm starting to see some big because quite frankly, I would argue as far as Fenster having to just continually drag on that arc and try to do his very best to not deliver it when he did. Yes, as you mentioned, there were marches in there, and it was a big debuff and all that. But again, they left a window. C9N left a very small but real window for goGT to come back. And right now, goGT if I was on their side, we have 5 minutes until arc. We're holding on to 3 altars. And it's time to go all in on that arc. It's going to be a 4th? Really? Whoa.
It could be a 4th. Look at this third one, the 4th one up here. So, wow. This could be interesting.
If they C9N coming in with a counter rally and with a swarm, let's not get too ahead of ourselves just yet. It was getting exciting for a moment, but C9N are reacting. Look at this. They took the enemy's outposts. They're doing everything they can right now to just drop the point per minute gain by goGT. And I don't even know whether or not these teams are going to have what it takes to fight for buildings while going for the arc, right? So if things stay the way they are right now and the battle is for the arc in the center, if I was C9N, I'd be sweating a little bit because their strategy relies strictly on the arc. But if the red team has enough of the points per minute and have enough of the map and put enough pressure in the center, now the real question is, does blue team really fight for trying to get the arc to their side, or do they fight to not let the red team take it?
This is going to be interesting, Gecko. I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be very interesting because, like you said, not only do they own 3 of the 4 altars on the map, and this one that's getting attacked by C9N by Swarm via Swarm but it's taken forever. So they're going to get some significant points from that. You know, this is going to come down to the last arc. Now, I got to say, you know, just looking at this match, right? Who has gotten the last 2 arcs pretty soundly? Who has gotten the last 2? It's been C9N. So, you know, C9N is going to live by the arc. They're going to die by the arc, but they've been doing pretty good living by that arc so far. So wouldn't count them out just yet. That Sky Altar now going down back in favor of C9N too. So match points are pretty much even per minute. Looks like C9N actually is going to have a little bit of an advantage if that's that Shrine of Life down at the bottom doesn't get taken from that Saladin rally. Yeah, this is going to be down to the wire. It's going to be it's 4,000 point delta right now, almost on the dot, and there's only a 10 point per minute advantage for C9N right this second. And with this altar popping in under 3 minutes? Yep, just under 3 minutes. This is going to be it. This is going to be for all the marbles. This could be the clutch win or the devastating stomping by 8,000 points, depending on which way this goes.
goGT going for that Shrine of War, and that rally is doing big boy work on the Shrine of War of C9N. This is exactly the one building I think goGT really want to take away from C9N. Take away that 5% attack and defense, which you get as buffs in the Shrine of War. Curiously enough, as you saw, a March came in and the commander in the lead changed. I don't necessarily know who is set up to be like their primary general and how did this change happen that quickly, but a rally hitting by little AC. If the Shrine of War goes down out of the blue team's hands right before this arc drops, it gives again a slight advantage to the red team. I'm not counting C9N out at all. I think they're still well in the driver's seat, but I think that to a certain extent, that second arc, there was a pretty prolonged period of time once they managed to get rid of the red team and slowly carry the arc back in their favor, where I was like, okay, sitting back with my back laid back, you know, kind of watching the match. But now I'm back to sitting up and even shaking a little bit because it's like, listen, there is a space, there's plenty of space for goGT to get back into this. And these guys are actually fighting for outposts right now. This is how crazy this matchup is.
I was just about to say that.
These guys got to a point where it's like, screw the altars, outposts, anything the arc can go to, for the love of God. Forget about the points per minute right now. The arc drops in a minute. Blue team swarming towards the center. Red team has already been here. The big boy fights are happening. And as you said, this is for all the marbles. C9N comfortably carried 2 arcs so far. But this one's going to be the big boy decisive one. And it's worth 4,000 points.
Yeah, this is the biggie. And like you said, so I've been popping between all the outposts. And it looks like C9N has finally kind of wrestled their outposts away from goGT. I saw a Mina in defense versus 3 swarming rallies, and it was a back and forth like I've never seen before. So that's the level of match that we're watching right now. And again, a 4,000 point match basically needs to be even. If we're at this point in the game, this is basically an even match right now. Whoever wins this last arc wins the match. Now, C9N has the added advantage of not necessarily having to capture the arc, so they have an additional way to victory, whereas goGT, they need that arc, and they need to make sure that they get maybe one building from C9N for about 5 minutes. So they've got two things that they need right this second. Well, three things really. First thing, they need to hold all their stuff. So do that first. Secondly, they need to take a building. Doesn't matter what it is. The point delta is so close that I think even an outpost, if they can keep it for 5 minutes, would work. And then finally, and this is the hardest part, they need to make sure they commit enough troops to not only keep their own structures, but to take that arc and swiftly, and I mean swiftly, bring it back to their own outpost. That's going to be the three keys to victory for goGT. If they can't accomplish all three of those at the same time in the next 9 minutes and 30 seconds, they're not going to win.
There are two things here to point out very quickly. The first one, the arc is indeed marching towards the red side. They did make a small mistake as far as carrying the arc. Someone picked up the arc from the side of the Temple of Osiris and not from the top side of the Temple of Osiris, rather than from the bottom area where the red team is in theory. And so they had an extra 5 seconds worth of a march to move around the Temple of Osiris and back into their side. This back and forth between these alliances right now on the Ark of Osiris is going to be massive, and I'm seeing every possible top-tier commander on the open field right now. We're seeing Fenster once again picking up the arc and dropping it. I'm seeing a lot of blue marches, but at the same time, a lot of them without health, and so goes for the red team. It's actually quite poetic to see the map completely split just in the beginning. Just like it's the beginning, it's the end of the match, 8 minutes away from the end. The map is split, and a very small point to bring up is that if goGT take this arc right now, they still lose the match, Dragothian. They're still about 4,300 points short. With the arc, they'll be 300 points short. And they're also not winning the point per minute game right now. Once all the buildings lock in and everything gets done for, they will be evened out. But they will need another 400 or 500-ish points to clutch the win at the end. Can you guess where I'm going with this?
So
the chat knows what I like. Hashtag provisions.
Yeah, well, provisions could do it. I think so. If you look at the rallies, right, here's the other thing. You've got the blue team, C9N. They're sending multiple rallies on top of having a very, very solid presence in the middle and starting to slowly inch this arc back towards the middle a little bit more, making sure that they're not letting that arc advance, because they know as long as they can just continue to attack the goGT arc carrier, nothing else matters. Anything else that they do, provisions, they could capture all the buildings at this point and it wouldn't matter. Just don't let them capture that arc. That's the benefit that C9N has. But what you're saying, and I agree, they need to send some provisioners out to get that extra 300 instead of maybe capturing a building. One or the other, I think, would do the trick.
I don't know if they would have the time, or they should even invest the resources in going on to buildings, and they still are. There's a blue altar blinking, but quite frankly, Dragothian, I don't think I'm going to move the camera from the center anymore. We're going to follow this arc all the way to the end, really, because this is the do or die moment. These are, as you said, all the marbles marching on the field right now with 200% extra 200% damage and very, very slow march. I think Fenster with his Richard are doing their very best to just it wasn't him, sorry, it was Chur, my bad. Yeah, arc on the ground again, red team swarming in, 6 minutes remaining, and it's starting to get a little grim.
Do you want the next level play?
I always want the next level play.
Let them take it to their side and then do a rally on that front outpost and capture it, and then destroy the arc.
You love it. You love it. You love it. You are like, if that's your signature play, let me grab the outpost 2 seconds before it ends. I'm still salty, by the way, just so you know. I'm still salty. That was my arc, the one arc I was calling the shots, and we almost had you, but then you had to do that, didn't you?
Yeah, I got to ninja it, and it works offensively too. That's the beauty of it. So in this play, Like right now, of course, the arc is moving the opposite direction again. So now goGT has it, and they're going to try and grab it for themselves. 5 minutes is a long time, but it's not that long. So they need to make sure that they're going to grab this, and they also need to make sure, like you said, now we're talking. It's almost what is it? I'm mental mathing very late right now. So 4,200-ish, 4,220. So the delta is shrinking just a little bit. Maybe they are doing a little bit of provisioning, and they captured the obelisk at the top. Do you see that? They
Yes,
captured
sir.
the obelisk at the.
That's
That's the move. I'm telling you.
that's
That's the move.
starting to scare me right there. In my
Oh, they took it back.
opinion, right now, the fight is happening in one place, and the arc is nowhere near that cloud at all. Red team kind of dropped their eye off the ball for a second, and the ball is running away with a Constantine. It's about to get taken out. At this point, I don't think goGT should be fighting at all. I think they should be sacrificing every single one of those marches to carry the arc, move 3 steps forward, and drop it. At this point, you're not going to clear blue team out. No way. But you do have a huge presence in the center. Rather than fighting in the open field, red team now have to pick up the arc, move it 4 steps, let the march die. Pick up the arc, move it 4 steps, and let the march die. And just 4 steps at a time, make it into any of their buildings. Like what they're doing right now, pick up the arc and start moving. It's very tough when there are hundreds of marches of the enemy all over the place. But having a cloud of fighting is actually a very good distraction, because who can click on the arc carrier right now? Someone managed to right before it went into the cloud. But if red team can make a cloud of marches and start moving, keep up marching this arc, they still have a small chance in here.
Yeah, C9N has basically made the last 6.5 minutes irrelevant. They just brought the arc right back to where the arc spawns. So it's going to take about, like I said, 2.5 to 3 minutes for this arc to go from point A to point B without obstruction. And I can tell you right now, just looking at the center of this screen, there's a lot of obstruction from both teams. So unless they get very, very lucky and are able to grab it and run, and they just can't click on the arc carrier, which is possible. And right now there is an arc carrier running, and maybe they don't see it from the blue team. There's a possibility they can bring it back. We're right at 3 minutes. We're starting to get to that threshold where it might be a little too late. But right now it's looking pretty for goGT. They're still moving it back to their side of the map. I would move it towards the desert altar, because it's down and away from where blue team is, the C9N folks are. Going straight to the right, that may not necessarily be the best play, because if you look to the right, there's 2 nice little armies sitting there from a C9N player, which should be coming in from the back end instead of fighting those open field players coming in. That would be my play.
Good progress by Dolphy, who picked up the arc. 2 minutes remaining, and this needs to start moving further. One thing that we just mentioned about 10 minutes or so ago was the auto simplified graphics. Auto simplified graphics actually made clicking on the arc carrier much more possible. Can you imagine the madness that would be all of this if we weren't in simplified graphics? First of all, we would have crashed for sure. I have no doubt we would have crashed. Emulators are not the best friends when it comes to lag and all that stuff. And on top of that, the strategy of hiding the arc carrier is now a little bit less viable because of the simplified graphics. I'm seeing the arc still moving, Dragothian, and it's moving relatively smooth. 1.5 minutes remaining. I am trying to click on the march, hoping and dreaming that I can, to see how much time there is on it, how much time is left on that march. And even I can't click it. 1 minute and 10 seconds. If they march this right now like they are, they might get it in the last 10 seconds. They will win if this keeps moving. They have to pick up this arc and keep moving. They cannot waste any second. There have to be more marches, and they need to make it in. Oh my goodness, they might be short on like 5 seconds.
Wire. This is going to be down to the wire. It's a 3,900 point game. This is a 4,000 point arc. This is everything. This is, like you said, all the marbles. The arc is down. 53 seconds left. You can see the outpost literally one screen away. Do they do it?
Dragothian, I'm shaking. Dragothian, I'm shaking. I don't know what to do. Like, at this point, I'm like, keep talking. I just want to watch. I don't know what to do. And you know, when
This
I'm
is
getting
gonna be great.
excited, my voice goes up, and I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God. I'm having flashbacks. I'm having flashbacks, and you are on the call with me, which makes it even worse because the flashbacks are literally watching you
Are
passing
about me.
us and going, Kadoosh, and we're like, no, 2 seconds before it ended. For those of you who don't
Well,
know what
let's.
I'm referring to, Dragothian and myself, both of our alliances, had a very, very close match, which they eventually won. 9 seconds, 5 seconds remaining, and goGT, unfortunately, just a little bit short.
Yep.
GG's. Chat, let's get that GG spam in the chat. Let's congratulate goGT, first of all, for an amazing, amazing fight against the folks of C9N. I want to see that spam of GG's in the chat. Let's make sure both teams, they deserve the credit for being here, for doing what they did, for being amazing sportsmen, as well as putting up a huge fight. Let's go look at the post-match battle complete report and see what we can learn out of this. All right, so what we got here, we're looking at 6,500 points on Ark of Osiris in favor of C9N, which is pretty much most of their lead. The occupation score win goes to goGT, as well as the minimal provisions, very minimal provisions. Healing wise, we're looking at a substantial heal from goGT, which I think we expected, right? Since they're on their back foot, they're going to put all their eggs in this basket no matter what. And so I didn't expect anything less. Almost 10 million healed units is kind of crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think knowing the power, right? So I believe C9N had about a three. What was it? A 3 million, or is it 30? Was it 30 million or 3 million more, or 300 million more power on the Delta? So
Mm-hmm.
it's expected, right? It's expected that the lesser power opponent is going to be the higher healed, just because they just don't tend to have as many T5 troops as the one that's higher. However, I really got to give some respect to both teams, especially obviously C9N for the victory, but goGT. I really love aggressive strategies. That's my thing. I've got to make sure that I give the props to them for having an aggressive strategy and really understanding that as long as they can keep the bigger opponent on their back foot, they have a shot. And they just got to make sure that they get that last arc. And they almost had it. They were a screen away. It just wasn't enough time. Maybe another 2 or 3 minutes, and then it might have happened. Who knows? But that's not the game we play. We play an arc that has a set amount of time, and they ran out of it. So congratulations to C9N. Great job to both teams for an amazing battle to kick us off this weekend. And I'm looking forward to casting the rest of these. If they're going to be anything like this one, I can't wait.
Yeah, man. C9N, we saw, I kind of talked about it in the pre-show, if you want to call it, that most of their matches were not like steamrolls, but they were very decent wins. I think you can add this into that list of allowing the other team to get a lot of points, but not enough to win. It's interesting that C9N's strategy is, I think, very unique. We haven't seen it yet, have we? Someone who is just turtling and going for the arcs. I've never really seen an alliance yet to just say, it's okay, we'll defend, we'll send a rally here and there, we'll make sure to make them send rallies on us to continuously react. But at the end of the day, our top priority is only the Ark of Osiris now. Our friend Chiskel is loving this because he lives by that Ark of Osiris. But again, I don't know. This strategy might work the first, second, or third time. But the moment someone cracks C9N's defense and starts taking buildings, does C9N have the depth in strategies to adapt and go on the offense now that their defense is broken? Dragothian, any final thoughts from you before we go back into the quote-unquote studio, I guess?
Well, it's a studio in its own right. No, I'm good. I think that overall, again, just great fights on both teams. I didn't see anything that was just so glaringly obvious that needed to be pointed out from a negative perspective. Everywhere we looked, there were proper rallies going against proper defenses. There were proper armies fighting in the open field. Both teams centered out their Ark of Osiris groups very efficiently, made sure that they were aware of the timings. That's the game, right? Making sure you understand where you're at throughout that and both teams did a fantastic job of understanding where they were at in respect to how much time was left and which structures they owned on the map. A lot of fun strategies seen here today. Looking to probably see some of these played out by other alliances in the future, even today.
Dragothian, my friend, thank you very much for being here with me today, and thank you for I think that one of the best casts we've had in a while. I love seeing all these alliances that truly you fought C9N before, but I had never seen both of these alliances in action. It's really cool to see them for the first time and have the ability to talk to you, someone who has all this in-depth knowledge, as someone who is the aggressor of his alliance and a future leader of your new alliance wherever you decide to migrate to. So thank you very much for this. Let's head back to the studio for now and wrap the stream up. We'll be back with myself and Dragothian for the next cast. But let's go back into the analyst desks, quote unquote, really quickly, shall we? So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys very much for being part of our cast today. Before you leave, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button and turning on the bell for the next ARC cast that's coming up in a few hours. Also, don't forget to go to our channels, both of them linked down here and in the description as well, myself and Dragothian. Come say hi, subscribe to the channels, join the communities, be active in the Rise of Kingdoms community. As you can see, we are interacting with chat through the cast. We're doing our best to bring as much of the best content available for Rise of Kingdoms. All the content creators who are part of the Arc of Osiris League cast are in the description down below, so make sure to go check them out. Thank you again, Dragothian, for an awesome cast. Chat, Rise of Kingdoms community, I'll see you guys in the next stream coming up in a few hours. And boy, oh boy, that matchup is going to be crazy. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'll see you guys sooner rather than later. Enjoy the rest of your day and take care. Yeah, what else can be said? Peace.